Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Artur Rehi podcast, and welcome Vlad Vexler. Welcome back.
Great to be back, Artur.
I think last time we spoke, it was almost 9 months ago, I think. Yeah. Last fall, 2022, ending. And it became actually my most viewed podcast with you. It was the very most viewed one, so congratulations.
Thank you. It's lovely. It's lovely to be back. It's weird how war contorts time, right? It goes more quickly, it goes more slowly, it goes more strangely. Nobody feels that more than Ukrainians, of course, but it's a universal feature of extreme events.
It's so weird when I look back at some of the old videos and I remember covering that stuff, for example, autumn or fall of 2022 when we talked. I look back at those videos and people evolve, and this war has changed me a lot. And I remember these stories and I feel like I remember some of my life events or what I was while reporting these stories. So I remember the old me or the evolvement level back then connected to these stories. Like I remember history through the events that happened in Ukrainian war, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, you've been extraordinarily involved, and you've been feeling it so much, more than you want to feel it even, right from the beginning. So it's been a huge journey for you.
I mean, yeah, we just talked about the video I made 3 weeks ago. Maybe I shouldn't be a military blogger. I'm quite vulnerable for this, and some other people I think could do it without getting getting so broken mentally. But that's how my life went, and here I am. I'm doing this, so there's no turning back now, and I don't want to stop. But I'm so vulnerable to this, honestly. Yeah.
Well, I think we need to sort of define what you are doing and what you are in time, right? When you're 50, when you're 60. So you need to do what feels right? And then it'll probably make a sense in a way that we can't predict today, But to everybody watching at home, I think what's really important is that everybody tries to be healthy around putting enough buffers in place. We all have different relationships with stuff coming in. What's easy for one person is hard for another. What's hard for another is easy for somebody else. So we all have these very different, very mixed capacities to keep putting stuff into ourselves. And I think that there's a certain very basic core question here about how getting that vaguely right really is a precondition for doing anything else, and the precondition for being there, for anybody else as well.
But I mean, getting the buffers, getting the boundaries for outside stuff, how to react to it, to do it properly, you really need to know yourself, because you need to know what to protect, what not to protect, what to let in, and that requires sensitivity for your own center, which is a skill, I think.
And I think, we can help each other with that. People help each other with that. Sometimes somebody who loves you, somebody who is close, can see the bump a few meters ahead that you're not seeing yet, knowing that with the kind of shoes that you wear, it's going to be a problem for you, and they can hold your hand. So, I think one thing that makes difficult conversations easy is when they're had together.
Oh yeah, I mean, part of my issue, I mean, I'm not like that anymore so much, but I used to be very stubborn, and I used to love to make my own mistakes. And a lot of people, before 2020, when I got my first round of depression, it was a really tough one. A lot of people were telling me, you're gonna burn out, like stop, take it slow, you need to rest. And I was like, yeah, you don't know nothing, I want to be successful, I'm gonna do it. And I burned out. It was really painful. I wanted this, so I got it. So I don't feel like it's a lack of people telling me the right thing. I think the problem is in me not letting that information in.
Well, I'm 42, and since the age of 22, I've lived with a pretty serious chronic illness. And I can say that it took me 10 years to learn how to live with it. It took me 10 years to not try to approach it in a silly and unconstructive and unsustainable way. So, learning is a wonderful thing, but it also takes time, and sometimes it feels impossible. But it happens.
Can you open up your chronic illness a little bit?
Sure. So I have a condition called myalgic encephalomyelitis, and I first got sick. Well, it's going to be 20 years in a couple of weeks. I'm going to have a little celebration. It just sounds like a perverse thing to do. But I think it's a celebration about, life, not illness, and a celebration about living with a challenge as well as one can. So for the first few years of it, I was bedbound and I couldn't talk or walk.
At all?
At all. Or read or think. I had too much brain inflammation to even read 2 sentences and understand them properly. So it was extremely scary. Not just physically scary, but scary because it affected my brain. And, I was a postgrad student when that happened. So I was somebody used to not being failed by their brain. And then suddenly I was. And it was sort of little by little, with medical intervention, with some drugs, and just with the passage of time, I improved from being in a kind of severe state to being in a more moderate state. And so now I probably work 2 to 3 hours a day. I function sort of maybe 4 hours a day, sometimes a little bit more. So the vast majority of the day, I'm still dealing with a lot of pain, a lot of physical symptoms that often stop me from even watching a YouTube video, let alone making one. But I try to sort of have a very fulfilling life and make as much of a contribution as I can in that little window that I get, which is terrible because I wish I had 16 hours, not 4 in a day. But it's also extraordinary because if I were where I was 17, 18 years ago, I wouldn't even be able to take a 10, 15-minute phone call from you. So, that's progress. And I know that a lot of people with my condition are in a much worse place than me. So that's been a really big journey. Actually, it helps me even understand people who go through hell, not to do with our bodies, but also to do with politics. I think that really big bad stuff that happens to humans has a kind of universality to it. And certainly in my life, I've noticed that because of the extremity of what I've been through, when I meet people who have been through extreme experiences, like being held in prison for a long time, I have several of these memories, but once I met somebody who had been in solitary confinement and tortured in the prison in Burma for almost a decade. And we can understand each other much more quickly than if I had not gone through this experience, even though I've been lucky and nothing bad politically has ever happened to me. Nobody's going to come and, unless the Russians are listening, but nobody is going to come and get me. So I've been very blessed. But I just have this feeling that humans who go through big stuff get other humans who go through big stuff. But none of this is, of course, to say that we wish this upon anybody. It's always a terrible thing to get sick, and we want as little of it for everybody as possible.
But I'm quite amazed. Like, if you have 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours a day, how are you at all making these videos? And they're very successful videos. What can I ask? What's the rest of the day? How is it for you?
Yeah, so I'm doing. First of all, I feel very loving and supportive of you for how extraordinarily you are developing your career on this platform. But also, a small part of me is envious because I want more time. But of course, maybe I can give you things that I have that you don't have, around brain chemistry or whatever. So we could do a deal. Maybe I can have a little bit more physical functioning. And I'll send you some brain chemistry. But what I would say is that it's sort of barely adding up at the moment. I'm doing three things. I'm doing a very small amount of consulting. I am writing a book about political philosophy, and I'm doing YouTube.
How the hell?
80% of this is YouTube at the moment. So I'm basically, the other two things are in small doses, and my book has almost ground to a halt just because my health can't stretch to everything. So I'm still figuring out how to make a solution. But the basic answer is that I have 2 YouTube channels, and I would love to upload every third day on the main channel. And I often upload once a month as a result, basically as a result of this. And obviously that's reflected in the channel's experience in the algorithm. I wish it wasn't like that. I'm still experimenting, because I think when we have limitations, sometimes we can surprise ourselves about how much we can get done. But yeah, it's you know, it's a bit of a miracle that just about this show is vaguely on the road, and I feel that it's constantly on the verge of, not being on the road anymore. And I'm very blessed to have this second channel where per minute of video that I share, it takes me just 90 seconds to upload it. I just turn on my mobile phone and I speak. And that's my chat channel. And that's driven by 2 things. It's driven by me wanting to have one place on YouTube where I ignore the algorithm, and by doing something that's completely compatible. That's a little bit more compatible with my health. Yeah. Just turn on the phone, turn it off, airdrop it straight onto my computer and straight onto YouTube without a special thumbnail or a special title. It's just the chat. And I'm very grateful to be able to do that. But of course, as you know very well, on my main channel, because you have the same experience, a minute of video doesn't take 90 seconds to produce. It takes probably, well, in my experience, probably about 4 hours.
4 hours.
Or 3 hours. And that's why I've been releasing a video a month often. I'm trying to reduce my production quality to make it more possible to speak to people on the main channel more often. But it's kind of like these two avenues whereby I'm basically speaking to a community that is already established, that knows me on the second channel. And the main channel is more about introducing people for the first time and welcoming them into the house. The community also gets a lot of value out of it, because with each sentence I utter there, I think about it a lot. It's very intentional. I'm not just sitting and looking at the ceiling like I do on the chat channel. But that's the balance. But basically, because of my health, it's often once a month instead of twice a week.
But I would love to talk about like writing a book, because I've gotten the idea in the back. Like, maybe I should try. How do you do it? You just sit and write? Do you need inspiration to hit you, or you can just...
So in my case, the book correlates a lot with an old PhD project that is about 15 years back in the past. So a lot of the ideas are in place, and it's a kind of academic book in political philosophy. But of course, when you and I do what we're doing, people sometimes come to us and say, well, what about a book about the stuff you're actually talking about on YouTube? I haven't thought about that, but I was just looking through my emails, and I've got a couple of sort of folks contacting me with ideas about that from publishers and so on. So it's interesting. I'm personally skeptical about writing anything about this topic, because I want to leave it to Russia specialists, because I'm really commentating on this war as a political philosopher who has a very special knowledge of Russia, rather than a a Russia expert in the first instance. That's why I often talk about the big ideas around what's going on rather than the details. And I'm often scared when people come to me with questions. What is the financial situation of Prigozhin's family? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've read
How do you
Nietzsche,
not know?
I've read Machiavelli, but that's going to teach me about how politics works. But it's not going to teach me about Mr. Prigozhin's bank accounts.
But that's what people want to know, though. Yeah,
they do, and it's a fine balance to strike. But I think, in the back of my mind, when I'm just raving on at you like this, what I am thinking is how particular this platform that we're on is, and how on the one hand it gives us this extraordinary opportunity to engage in public communication, but on the other hand, the platform also, of course, has its own shape. The algorithm has its own tweaks and patterns of behavior, and we have to be conscious about that, because otherwise you would be sort of swimming against the current. And what you want to do is, of course, figure out how what you authentically want to say can be received without too much obstance, without too much pushback from the algorithm. So it's such a complex balance. I think when somebody's sitting at home, they think, well, they're just chatting into the camera, but it's more complex than that. So I think of you, among other things, as a pro at this. And people might think, but well, we both are. I think you are much more than me, but we are. And I think people at home think, well, it's nothing pro about turning on your camera and turning on a mic, but actually it is. I mean, this is a little bit closer to running a small publishing platform than it is to just, turning on a couple of plugs and then going on. It takes a lot of thought, a lot of intention, a lot of strategy, and also just a strong commitment, I think, to being trustworthy and inspiring trust in the audience. Something that the algorithm isn't going to take care of for us.
No, at all. And if you really want to be yourself and be trustworthy and or be straight to your audience, usually that is not promoted by the algorithm at all. So you have to. I feel like I have to sell a little bit of myself away to be promoted on YouTube. It's a character. I mean, I'm a happy, giggly guy on there. I make jokes on death, and actually I'm this broken guy. I take pills, I take antidepressants. So it's a full character, actually. And I every now and then I try to sneak in a video that really shows me, so people wouldn't go super disconnected of who I really am. But I couldn't do this daily. People say, "Oh, be who you are. Rest if you need to." I can't. I mean, this is my full-time job. This is everything I have. It's part of my personality. I really can't, and I don't want to. But I'll just find the balance in showing every now and then of who I really am. And these videos get a lot less views, but that's fine.
Yeah. And, you are, you've got several hats on, and one of the hats is that you are also entertaining people. And we shouldn't be, I mean, not all YouTubers are entertaining people. I'm terrible at entertaining people. But you're also doing that in a professional way, the way somebody who is a professional at certain performance crafts, would do. And of all the people in our algorithmic bubble, you're the most gifted at that. You have actually qualities that are a big part of why you're doing so well. And this is really just for everybody who we love and who loves us watching this. It's not an accident to get 600,000 or 700,000 subscribers on YouTube. There's a lot of super smart people who can give that a go and not get there. And luck, of course, plays a big role. But it's just a component. There's also the capacity to apply a craft, right, in a particular environment where certain particular techniques and skills are required. So it's I think of all the people who are operating at such a high level on YouTube as people who are doing a professional craft, basically.
It is, and it's so weird how it is not perceived as such. YouTubers, or I mean, not military bloggers maybe, but just YouTubers are perceived as something vague and fast work, easy money, stuff like that. But it's an incredible grind all the time. For example, today I felt horrible in the morning. I'm going to Kiev tomorrow. I wanted to prepare mentally. I'm very anxious and stressed out. But it's the last video I make before a week of no upload. So I figured I have to do it. I hate it today. I didn't want to do it. I felt like my brain was just dead. No serotonin, no dopamine. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to push myself. And I drank a whole cup of coffee with one sip before. And I abused that cup of coffee. And I used the 30 minutes it gave me to make the video. And that's how I have to ignore my needs. And people say, oh, you are number one. Take care of yourself. But it isn't that easy. I can't always. Today I went over my personal needs, my personal wants, and I forced myself to do it. But if you want to be a YouTuber and be semi-successful or something, you sometimes have to ignore your own needs. That's the tough reality of it. So yeah.
Absolutely. I do think of myself as somebody who communicates on this platform as a YouTuber, but I also have a kind of mixed relationship with the ways that I'm not a YouTuber. That's to say, my work off YouTube. What I really love about it is that my intellectual life is not on YouTube, or it'll be on other channels, is not on YouTube or for YouTube. So I don't analyze politics to speak about it on YouTube. I analyze it anyway. That, I think, helps. I think I'd be okay anyway, but it helps with that clarity and rudder, right, of where you're going, that you're not producing an analysis for a platform, you're producing an analysis and sharing it on a platform. That makes it a bit easier for me. But the sort of the downside of it for me is that because of my illness, my life is going in the wrong order, and even if it goes in the wrong order but works out somehow, I'll be so happy. What I mean is that if I were well, I'd have a couple of academic books out, then I would communicate on YouTube or on my own platform. But the way I'm going at the moment, I've started, and it was a kind of a conscious decision. I was like, I shouldn't wait, because I was waiting until I got some recognition in my field, and then off the back of that wanted to communicate with the public. And I thought, because of my illness, I don't need to wait. I'm going to start a public conversation at 40. And if at 50 I'm alive and I can add to that an academic contribution, then I should be so lucky under the circumstances of my limitations, if that can work. But I feel that sort of strangeness, because that's not a normal route for somebody who thinks of themselves as, planning across their life to do quite a bit of academic work. It's not normal to start the public conversation first. So it feels strange, and I am excited, but also uncertain about how that'll work out, because of course it's predicated on health and on me being able to sort of balance these priorities with an uncertain sort of bank of functioning that I'm relying on. It could be that next year I have half an hour more per day or half an hour less. I just don't know. So it's fascinating. It's always that feeling of, there's no way this is going to be possible, but then making it possible. So kind of staring with openness and faith into a bit of a blank wall without a gap in it, but then seeing that gaps can arise as you approach the wall closely, as you massage it, and so on. So that's kind of back to your question, how I experience it within the context of the illness. It's like a wall that seems to have no way through it, that then gives me some possibility to explore maybe a hole, or maybe climbing under, climbing above, and then I do, and then that repeats itself.
That is an amazing ability to. My English not that good to to improvise and adapt and overcome. If we use that very famous military saying, like, you have a huge obstacle, and then some people would stay, some people go back, and then you find a way through it. And yours is, I cannot imagine honestly how it would. I have my mental health, I have issues, and world seems dark. And if I would add that already there. I don't think anybody would understand if they haven't felt something like that, or as you said, if they haven't felt something extremely strong, torture perhaps, or something like that. But can I ask like a more, or you just can say no?
Of course,
okay.
No, we're chatting.
So, is there a possibility that you can die? Like,
no, I mean,
out of the blue?
I just had a phone call with a woman whose daughter died from my condition 2 years ago, at the age of 27. But it's something that can reduce your life expectancy, but it's not likely to kill you. The only way it can kill you is through a kind of deterioration where your body becomes just reactive to everything. Including reactive to, for example, medications you might need on a certain occasion. I have a little bit of that problem, so I'm reactive to medications that make me better. So that's a real catch-22. But what happens to some people is they become reactive even to food, like all food. And then they have to go and be tube-fed, and there can be problems with that. And so a very small number of people. I get into trouble if I say that my condition is non-fatal, because a very small number of people dies from it, but it's basically not. It's not something. It's a sort of thing that probably makes it more likely that you're going to get other illnesses like cancer or heart disease, and it maybe knocks your life expectancy. So I shouldn't be planning till 90, but maybe a bit earlier. But no, I'm not. If I were told the news that I was going to die, I would be extraordinarily surprised. Because I've been through a lot, I'd probably be able to handle it, but I would be extraordinarily surprised. So no, it's not at that. I'm not, fingers crossed, in a life-threatening situation at all.
I'm glad. Podcast in 10 years, scheduled. Very good.
Deal.
After your book.
Deal. And yours.
Yeah, I was thinking just of, I haven't gone to any kind of political school. I was just a conscript. The thing I do is, as you said, I went to an acting school in Hollywood, and then I went to the army straight. So I just combined these two things, being an actor and going to the army as a conscript, and boom, you get my channel. But my book, I'm just thinking maybe, okay, I have a lot of mental pain. Maybe I can just share the story. For not people who are perhaps older than me, but some people who are younger and still haven't had their first round of serious depression or life's pains. If they read it, perhaps it's just like it's a silver lining that I'm fine, I'm feeling better. Maybe they can, find something in it.
I'm a big fan of that, because each person who writes something like that can reach their own audience, and you have already a very big audience. And I think one of the things we terribly lack is a skill set for people to engage with other people who are going through stuff. I think we've made huge progress on understanding mental health, but I still think people are scared of going there. They're scared of engaging. And even when you talk about what you've been going through, most people want to engage more than they can, and they're a bit scared about saying the wrong thing. They're a bit scared about what to ask. They're scared about not fully understanding it. And so, as much as we have done to get past stigma, I still think most people run away. Not literally, but metaphorically. Most people run away when you put something on the table like that. And not because it's a burden to them. It's that they run away because they're scared. They can't handle it. And I think that any contribution that makes us better with this makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many feelings. I couldn't say that anyone around me would have made me feel guilty or would have ashamed me, but I have these feelings of guilt and shame and confusion of why am I broke? Why do I feel like I want to crawl up in a corner where everybody else is having fun in the party? You know, as a, let's say, 23-year-old, 24-year-old, when I should be happy young lad enjoying my youth, but I'm like, I don't see colors in the world right now. So why am I like that? The confusion, and then guilty, where I should be a nice person to talk to, but I just don't have the energy to like connect. The guilt and all of these feelings are a huge stop to reaching out. Like, I feel guilty, I feel ashamed, I feel there's something wrong with me. I don't like. Then I want to hide this. I don't want to talk about it, and I don't. This is why it's. Even if nobody has shamed me for it ever, I still feel it. So I can understand how even some people do shame other people for it, or do make them feel guilty. Like, why are you not happy? Why are you not smiling? You know, that would be even more horrible. And I know some people do have people around them like that. So
I just, I've already said it, so I'm being a broken record, but I'm just a very big believer in how much people struggle to understand how something that's easy for them can be difficult for somebody else. But of course, all you need to do is just think about things that are difficult for you that are easy for others. And then that's how that process of empathy starts. There are so many, I bet there are so many things that are easy for you that are difficult for me. And so, but we really struggle to get on with that self-extraction and realize that something that's easy for me can be genuinely, extraordinarily difficult for somebody else. That empathy is a real problem, I would say, on a cultural level, actually. Our culture is not good at helping us think that what's hard and what's easy for us is different person to person, and we need to be very slow about that.
Yeah, understanding another person is, I think, in a way, a conscious choice to try to see both points of view. Or if somebody's mean to me or aggressive against me, it has happened. I used to be very impulsive, and I used to be like, "Oh, you mean to me, I'm mean to you," and there's this crash, And now I'm more willing to just take it, because they're like, I'm not gonna let myself be beat up mentally, of course. But if somebody like has a very bad reaction to me, my first reaction is not even to answer to it anymore. I get riled up, yes, but there's a control mechanism now here. After the depression, I've calmed down a lot, and it's like, okay, what is he going through? Why did he react like that? A person who is happy, healthy, and doesn't have stuff going on in their lives, they're usually not aggressive. So possibly there's pain to hide, or some kind of guilt to hide behind this aggressiveness. So this empathy kicks in, and it's a little bit easier for me to just leave it and understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that these sort of exercises of empathy are things we've also come across a lot in how we understand Ukraine. We've struggled often with empathizing in various kinds of ways around experiences that we've never had. So I think it's important to always try to get better at that. How do you balance your audience's responses to you? do you go there a lot? How do you filter that process for yourself? Or how much do you get impacted, and by what? And how does that feel, and how do you manage it?
You mean the comments, perhaps?
Comments, really, yeah.
I mean, I have a huge need for compliments and recognition. I have a huge need for it, and I read positive comments and I enjoy them really, really a lot. And when I get negative comments, I kind of filter if it's just hate or is it a constructive criticism. If it is constructive criticism, then I read it and try to change something about my channel, or if I insulted anyone, because I make mistakes on YouTube and sometimes I say the wrong things, and then I can fix them. And if it's just hate, I'm just like fully hide user from channel and they can never comment again. But I really know myself to need that positive comment, and I cannot say I'm like addicted to it, but I'm now open to admit it. Some people are like, I don't need it, I don't do it for the compliments. A huge part of me is I need those comments, I really do. And I don't think it's wrong to feel that way, because a lot of people need recognition, and I never had a father, so there's a huge gap in my childhood of getting acceptance. So it would be only obvious that I'm getting it from YouTube and not from like some other bad place, bad crowd or whatever. I'm doing my videos and I get recognition. I think it's a win-win, How do you like? Do you have a different aspect to reading comments, or?
I read them. I go on about this thing called love on the second channel a lot, and I think most people get it, but sometimes people who are new are confused. Like, is this weirdo telling us that we love him or that he loves us, and what is wrong with him? But I mean, of course, that there's 77 different kinds of love. And one kind of love, for example, not speaking about what you and I do, but what kind of love that leaders have, and I have zero leadership talent, so I'm just giving an example. But one kind of talent that leaders have, natural leaders especially, is the capacity to hold people no matter whether these people are extending their arms for a hug towards you or whether they're throwing darts at you. Can you hold somebody who is throwing darts at you a little bit? Or, putting it a bit more softly, can you dance with somebody who has turned up to the dance evening without their pants but refuses to acknowledge that they're not wearing any pants? Are you going to sit there and tell them off and tell them to go home, or will you still dance with them? You might need to be truthful with them. Hey, I love dancing with you. Obviously, you don't have any pants, but I mean, I still love dancing with you. So that is a kind of love that is to do with being extended to people in a way that doesn't have to be fully reciprocal. So for me, my stability with the way the audience reacts to me is based on my confidence that I'm going to have a transformational impact on them. And obviously, if I completely stopped having a transformational impact on anybody, I would then need to question what I'm doing, why I'm doing what I'm doing wrong, and how I've dropped the ball. But that gives me a kind of stability that's not predicated on what particular comments it is that I'm reading. And it's taken a while. I probably wouldn't have felt like this at 25, but in my 40s I do. I genuinely am as welcoming of somebody who is not being very nice about being in my community as I am of somebody who just adores being there, unless they are being deliberately destructive. Then I'm not impressed. But if somebody's kind of like, and I have quite a few people who regularly follow me, who have very mixed feelings about everything that I'm doing. But it's very important that it's not just, I'm not faking that welcome to them. It's really there. And that's the sort of thing that I call love. Like I'm willing to welcome people into a kind of living room, and then we need to see what happens. We need to see where we can go. We need to explore what we can do together, normally by asking questions and teaching ourselves to look better and so on. And I suppose I make an effort of making people understand that they don't need to agree with me to be there. And that's something that's hard on YouTube, because we're used to saying, what are the 17 things I think, and how do I find, as a consumer, content that matches that and intensifies it further? And that's what I'm going to watch. So it's a real, I'm almost on a daily level on that second little chat channel. Well, it's not little, it's actually got pretty much the same number of views now in smaller increments than the main channel, because I'm so regular there. But I'm trying to break that idea that we're here to consume stuff we already know we want. I want to have a room where we say, let's be open about what we want. Let's not just go Amazon.com and say that's what we're after. Let's ask what we want a bit more. And so that is part of my sort of conversation with the community. In terms of my actual behavior, I think I like to be very respectful 9 times out of 10, and 1 time out of 10 I am probably grumpy, and I say sort of mean things like, well, your comment shows no understanding of the issue, or your comment shows no understanding of what you're reacting to, and then they might say, well, you show no understanding of what you're reacting to. But I just think it needs to be healthy. It can't just be fully like a machine. I sometimes deliberately allow mood to come out in the way I respond. So it's a little bit, it can be a little bit flexible. But then the other thing I think that for the people watching us, it's really important to understand is the most prominent comments do not necessarily represent the community, because you're talking about the 1,000 most committed people, and I have at periods had, whatever, 250,000 people returning audience. You've probably had 500,000, if not more, returning audience over a month, maybe even more at some points. So what often happens is that there is this very big gap, and it's possible that like the top 6 or 7 comments do not represent how most people feel. And I think that's also very important to be aware of. Because it teaches us something about also how not just other YouTubers, but other organizations, media organizations, experience this comment situation. I did a video recently where after 2 hours, 1 in 3 comments was negative.
Ooh, whoa.
And the likes were 99.4%.
How is that possible?
It's because I probably pushed people in some direction. Probably was an episode not about Ukraine. It probably was an episode about Western democracies, and I may have, pushed people in a certain direction I didn't like. I don't remember what the issue was. Eventually, it all evened out, even in the comments section. But what I'm saying is, it's very important to be careful about that gap, and even with the positive side of it. So when people say, "Oh my word, it would just be amazing if you did that," and then you think, well, would that bring value to 1,000 people, or is that something that's really going to help also a few tens of thousands and a couple of 100,000? And sometimes it's an overlap, but sometimes you can perceive that there is a gap, and you need to be sensitive to the fact that you're meeting one group's needs but not meeting the other group's needs. So that's why I'm always keen to point out this kind of gap. The image I have when I'm talking about this is of something like the BBC in the UK sharing a video. And because people are losing trust in institutions, 77 comments underneath all saying, "The hell with the BBC, you're all terrible globalists."
Always, yeah.
But actually, that doesn't represent. I did a small interview for a Scandinavian public broadcaster documentary on Russian disinformation and on the Nord Stream situation. And I remember one of them, I don't remember if it was Danish or Norwegian, they shared, I think, a clip of me on their social media. And I read about 80 comments everyone was negative, each one. Get this CIA-sponsored guy off our screens. And so, but that would not represent the audience. It would represent a sliver of the audience, but just looking at that can give us a very scary impression. And so that's, I'm raving on there, but these are very important differences sort of to be aware of, I think.
I mean, the scariest thing, usually my comments are positive because I kind of follow what people want me to do. That's what I'm talking about. I'm a character for the people in front of the camera. But what I'm afraid is the comments are always positive, but the algorithm isn't. Sometimes the video just gets, it's 10 out of 10, 5 out of 10. YouTube gives you these analytic numbers of how did your video perform. And even the 10 out of 10, the comments are all positive, but just the video isn't that interesting, or people don't watch it that long, and that is a hit for me. It's tougher for me than any negative comment, honestly, if the video is performing bad.
And I just want to help people understand why I really know how you feel, and I think especially this needs to be said for either younger people working on YouTube or for people with a need for bigger buffers around their mental health. YouTube does not just say, "Oh, your video is not performing so well." YouTube, if you want to go there, gives you grey downward arrow after grey downward arrow after grey downward arrow on pages upon pages upon pages. And if I imagine a relatively solid, stable 18-year-old starting YouTube, I would think that most would have a massive crisis of self-esteem and confidence just in virtue of how the back of this platform is organized. You basically need to sit there and say, I'm here sort of in reception of kind of what looks like a sort of a virtual fax machine, and it's just downward arrows are being sent to me non-stop.
It's sending you signals that you're not good enough all the time.
It is designed to make people have a level of insecurity that really borders on being really destabilized by this overwhelming negative feedback. I'm quite stable with it, but I relate so much, in particular because I upload so infrequently that when all the arrows are completely down, I'm very conscious of it because I'm not going to make another video for a month some of the time. But whenever I watch this, and I think, oh my word, if I were a young person starting on this platform without a great deal of resilience, this is a recipe for terrible mental health. It's a perfect recipe for it, and and yes, I'm giving an example of an 18-year-old, but I actually think the way it's designed, I think most humans would struggle with it. I actually think like 70% of humans would find that very unhealthy.
I have a feeling they do that on purpose because for them it's money. I mean, the creators need to be feeling guilty to produce more out of guilt, and then YouTube gets more money, more views. It works. If I see those downward arrows, I immediately mobilize my energy. Like, I gotta make another one. I gotta work and fix this stuff. It works on me. I'm in the loop. I'm in the trap. I'm like a leaf in the wind. Downward arrows everywhere. So bad.
But you know what? I think what you're reacting to almost on a physiological level isn't just that one video is bad, but what stops the next two being bad, and then your whole life changes.
I project everything into the future.
If your life completely depends on YouTube, then there's nothing technically to stop the algorithm from liking you. It's kind of possible. I think it shouldn't happen. It's a bit more rational and more transparent than that. But at the same time, it's not completely predictable. And so, unless you are zen about this, for any normal human, there are some people who are freakishly stable, but for any normal human, you think, well, if this happens 3 or 4 times in a row, I'm suddenly in a very different place, and then how do I come out of that? And it's because this is not like you have a job on a TV channel with a 5-year contract where you know where you're going to be. This literally depends on you swimming successfully in an algorithmic context which is not fully transparent to you. You're not told where the sharks are and so on and so forth.
No. And you get this downward arrow. It messes up my mood. I have depression. I'm not stable. I get this horrible feeling that I need to do another one. I'm afraid. I feel guilty. I have these fear projections into the future that I cannot pay my mortgage. And with that feeling, I'm going to make the next video. So that is insane. That is how it messes with you. And if it's another downward arrow, it multiplies and multiplies, and it's a roller coaster.
Now, obviously, this sounds like a first world problem.
Oh yeah, so much. Sitting in my comfy home, bitching about how YouTube doesn't like me.
Excuse me, my arrows are not good again.
Oh, boo!
But no, it's real. I actually think that anybody would find it difficult because it's almost designed like that. I don't enjoy as much time interacting with other YouTubers and younger YouTubers, but on rare occasions when I do, I sometimes recommend them to delete the studio app from their phones.
I've done it twice in my life now. Both times I'm addicted. I'm addicted to that app. I delete it. My hand starts shaking. I get this, I'm physically addicted to that app. I have to re-download it and refresh my statistics. It's so bad. I have to delete it again. I have a problem. Yeah.
But you are doing freakishly well. You're doing such an extraordinary job. And you're improving all the time as well. So that's where 95% of the emphasis should go. And 5% on the terrible arrows that are stalking you.
Those damn arrows. I see them in my dreams. Yeah. I think I'm gonna delete it again because, in all honesty, what I can do is make a good video, and if I do that, my job ends, and then I take this fear and it continues, and my job is then swiping and refreshing the analytics, which is not supposed to be there, not supposed to give me that fear and that anxiety, but I do this because I have this addiction to this analytics. And if I could only view it in a perfect world that, okay, I did well because I made a video, not because it got this amount of views, that would be amazing. But it's not my reality.
What? How do you feel about your audience? Like, how much do you think about them, or do you just feel them? Like, how often do you think about, Benjamin in Vancouver, who watches you 3 times a week and has 2 children and is following the war and so on? How often does your mind go there, and with empathy or with imagination or with just wondering?
Not really often, because if I would go out more, I'm mostly in my room making these videos, and it's like I'm not used to putting names and faces together, and it's mostly just very alone job. So I'm not used to personalizing these viewers. Not really. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if I get an email, then they write something and then I will read. But no, do you have a very personalized name and face sometimes? Or?
I think with some regulars I try, but I think on the whole it's more about. I think with me, because sort of any conversations I've had in public before I started YouTube were in an academic context. And so for me, it's been a big learning curve to learn to speak to everybody as opposed to people who are sitting with a special technical tool set in the philosophy seminar. And so that has been a learning curve. And one of the ways that I've sort of experienced it is in terms of putting the audience first and the ideas second. I don't mean that I tailor the ideas to them, the opposite. I start with what ideas are important and true that they might be missing or weirded out by or just stressed about. And then I try to make content not around sort of any kind of detail, but around that sort of feeling that it might have. So I try to kind of go there in terms of, well, are they feeling that they're not trusting things, or are they feeling like they're scared of stuff, or are they feeling like something is hopeless, or they feeling they want to do something better and be a more effective voter or citizen they can't, and so on. So I do spend a lot of time engaging with that, knowing I'm almost completely useless to solve it for anybody. But I just think the idea of starting a conversation that tries to a little bit hold that for people, that for me is important, and probably is also a good way of getting a little bit more mellow about the arrows, as hard as that is. But yeah, that's why I have this sort of completely divided. I mean, that's health driven, but I have this completely divided YouTube experience where I am conscious of the algorithm on the main channel, but not on chat, the second channel. And on that channel, it just doesn't grow. It's more people coming over from the main channel to check it out, and that's how it develops a bit. But in itself, it rarely makes any progress in the. I mean, it does, but not in a significant way. And so there, I just let go of all of that analytic stuff. But on the main channel, I spend a lot of time, genuinely, not as much as like proper YouTubers do, but I spend a lot of time thinking about how to wrap, a piece of asparagus in candy. And I see that as being, maybe the YouTube thumbnail, maybe the title, and maybe the introductory sort of seconds of the video. Because the truth is, for people at home, on any channel that grows, the way the videos are going to get to people who are really interested in them is if people who are half interested watch them. And it's only so if the algorithm needs to get something from you who's seen it to me who would love seeing it, it may need to go via somebody who is half interested, and like you and I who are fully interested. Mm-hmm. And only if the video keeps that half interested person engaged will it get to me. So that's the kind of paradox, that to reach the people who really love your content, you also have to keep on board some people who have a much lower level of enthusiasm. And that's kind of an inevitable product of how the algorithm works, which is why I often have people complaining on a second channel where there is no editing that they don't like the main channel, because sometimes there are two angles. Even though I still don't have a camera, I only use a 3-year-old mobile phone. But people complain, Vlad, why is there music there? Why is there editing? Why is there text? And the answer is, how you love being on this chat channel without any editing? You wouldn't have found it without the main channel. The algorithm wouldn't have brought you here. So that's the kind of paradox. And you have to be realistic about that. You can, in a money economy, you can't say, I hate money and it's irrelevant to me. So you have to just understand the kind of world you live in. You can't simply say, I'm going to be at war with the algorithm in every way. Otherwise, you just won't. There will be no audience. It won't get you. It won't get you connected to the people who are going to be enriched by what you have to share.
Yeah, exactly. And the first seconds or the hook are so terribly important. Sometimes I feel like it's so weird. I talk about war, right? And I just want to I have to make the choice already when looking at the news, which news would people want to see more, which news is relevant, and I cannot take the news that I think is terribly important because I'm Estonian and it's relevant to Estonia. I have to see through my audience's view, this news is important for them, although for me as an Estonian, it's nothing. It's probably even not a big deal. As a military blogger, I know it has no significance. But I know my audience would eat it up and they want it or they need it. For example, a kitten saved in a house in Ukraine, it has no military value. But I know it's a hook. I know I want to see it. It will lighten up my day and my video. It's a win-win. I can smile and I can hook my audience. So it's like you have to find these small things, and it's quite difficult actually, especially when talking about war. I mean, yeah.
I think in the advocacy world, or in the sort of Ukraine advocacy world on YouTube, somebody who's really good at that is Jake. Jake is really good at taking people on a journey over, because that's back to a conversation where we started. Why is this nice American boy so popular? He's just summarizing the war and he looks nice. So why is this getting 300,000 views? But actually, what Jake does is an extremely well-crafted thing. And one of the things he does really well is balance seriousness with feel good, so that people don't feel they're sort of pushed and stressed too much. And he has this wonderful way of landing people at the end of his episodes with something that is much more inspiring and much more of a feel good story. And that allows some of the less pretty stuff in the video to sit in people without giving them kind of indigestion. So back again, the craft of this platform.
Yeah, and it is so important. I could imagine like Hard Facts channel, some channels that only do these frontline updates, they are quite popular, but I cannot watch them, honestly. I cannot, if there's no humanized aspect or a face or a personality giving me this information, and if it's not a little bit sugar-coated or mixed with some humor or some kittens being saved or, stuff like that, for me personally, I can't. So that's why I do it. But there are these hard channels who only look at analytical data of what land was liberated, which units went where. It's very dry, but hundreds of thousands of people watch them, and they want it like that. But like personally, I can't.
It's going to be a bit hard for some of these channels, I think, to evolve, because of that lack of connection beyond the issue. I think that a lot of people are very involved in the war and they want to see the Russians defeated like a sport. And I think that is a lot of people are taking advantage of that, quite frankly. A lot of them are doing so very responsibly, some less responsibly, and so on. But I think that's that's something that will disappear. But also, I don't think, as smart as the algorithm is, every view is the same. I think a channel might have regular viewers who half watch, but really enjoy half watching. Whereas some other channel might have people who are really engaged. And if the viewer, I think one of the good questions is how many people would watch if you just started commentating on a totally different topic, like kittens, and obviously that's going to be a low number for everybody. But I think it's not an unhealthy question. But there's lots of ways to work responsibly on this platform, but I think it's hard, and I think it also requires, I think, a long-term vision and a long-term commitment.
Yeah, For me, I feel lately, I mean, 1.5 years, almost daily, just being alone in my room and looking at war and death and suffering and trying to light it up. I feel I want to get out. I want to talk to people. I want to make videos outside with people in my field. For example, yeah, I'm going to Kiev now for the fourth time tomorrow. I can go and connect to people connected to this war. So in a way, this is a very good silver lining for me. But if I wouldn't have this opportunity, it would be very tough for me to continue these videos, because I need to socialize, because I get great up in my room here, and it's bad for me. So
how are you feeling about this Ukraine trip?
I'm very excited, and
Yeah?
I'm bringing my accordion this time. So I'm bringing
Wow.
it there, and I'm gonna play to the soldiers. We're gonna play to
How
other
long have you been
fighters.
playing?
10 years. 10 years.
And it's a standard accordion.
Yeah, accordion.
What do you
And
play?
Well, I was in a band, but when the war started, I went away. I was a lead singer and accordionist in a folk band, so mostly march, polka, stuff like that. Very Slavic type dance music, very fast. If you would hear it, you get this gypsy vibe, like, ooh, we dance like that. Very crazy dance stuff, which is not like very popular in the West, but ex-Soviet bloc, it's very big. And I still play all of those songs. I don't perform anymore, but I still have the skill set. So I just
Amazing.
studied some Ukrainian songs, so I'm gonna perform them.
Fantastic. I know a little bit more about the bandoneon than I do about the accordion, which is a kind of a sibling instrument to the accordion. It's so popular in Argentina with tango and so on. But they're amazing. They can be amazing instruments, and more versatile, actually, weirdly more versatile than we think. There's a woman in Switzerland who actually plays classical music on the accordion, and does so phenomenally well. So yeah. And are there videos of you playing online?
There are, but you know what my viewers say, in the West, accordion has not the best reputation, and a lot of the comments are like, a gentleman is a one who knows how to play the accordion but never chooses to play the accordion. That's a gentleman, and I'm not a gentleman. I just fully play full tune. So yeah, I mean, it's an obnoxious instrument, very loud, and if you're a bad player, you will play it loud, and if you get skill set 10 years later, you know how to dynamically play it, soft and nice. But 5-6 years into the playing, everybody fully pulls it, and it's just horrible for the ears. So I can understand the abuse. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long are you going to be in Ukraine this time round?
13th to 19th, 1 week. 1 week, yeah. So everybody else goes back, and I'm gonna stay with a few guys 2-3 days longer, because Kiev is so beautiful, and every time it's so hard to leave. Yeah.
Fantastic. Have you been surprised by your experiences in Ukraine? The 3 times you went?
Yeah, I've kind of fallen in love with the Kiev and Ukraine in general. I don't know, I feel very Slavic. Estonians are very phlegmatic and slow and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm very, temperamental guy. I talk with my hands, and I'm like, oof. And I go to Ukraine, and nobody's looking at me weird. Nobody's like, hey, why you so, why you talk like that? Why you behave? Because they are like that. I really like it. And they're also hardworking, like Estonians. So I get that Slavic temperament with the hardworkingness. Because, in Russia, it's a little bit different. So for me, Ukrainian people, the best people in the world next to Estonians for me. So yeah, I really love them. Have you been to Ukraine?
Not for a long time. Yes, I have, but not for a long time. So I'm not a Ukraine expert. I haven't been to Russia for quite a while either, but the visits there were quite regular. So that gives me more of a sense. And also, Ukraine's been changing so much in the last few years, up until the war too. It's very important to kind of have that pulse. I try to do my best to keep connected. So I wasn't one of those people who had no sense of what was going on politically before the war. I did, but I'm certainly not a country. I'm certainly not a country expert.
Me neither, honestly. Just like them, like the temperament, like the attitude also. But Vlad, actually, I want to thank you for giving an hour of your time, an hour of your day, and because of the beginning conversation, I know how much that is worth actually for you and for me. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving that to me.
Thank you
to
for
the
having
viewers.
me, and I'm really proud of the work you're doing, and I'm always here for you.
Thank you so much. And Vlad's channels, all of the channels, many of them are in the description below, all 11 of them. You can go and click and subscribe. And in 10 years, when you have the book out, we'll have another... we're going to have it sooner, but then also. But from me at least, it's bye-bye for now.